Hi, I'm Kieren.
And I'm Riku.
And welcome to Artificially Ever After
Short Stuff.
Okay, so run AGI run. What are we talking about today, Riku?
We're going to talk about humanoid robots. So we're not talking about those Roomba vacuum cleaners that just have wheels to move around in your home. We're talking about robots with legs and arms.
Yeah, and we're going to get into in a second why are we talking about this in 2025 in particular. But I think one thing that prompted me to do this now is I saw a news article that for the first time ever, there was a marathon where humanoid robots actually competed alongside humans, and they were running the marathon distance. Sorry, it was a half marathon, not a full marathon. But there were 21 humanoid robots in Beijing, China, and they competed and tried to run alongside the humans. And I'd highly recommend you go and watch some videos online of this because it is pretty hilarious. It's like something out of like a comedy sketch. A lot of them just kind of face planted straight off the start line, so didn't make it very far at all. Some of them looked kind of weird and wonderful. Some of them had trainers on, which I thought was interesting. Surely just make the robot to not need shoes. But then one of them actually finished the half marathon in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So not too bad of a time. And yeah, if you watch it, it's running pretty naturally. So yeah, it's definitely, we're seeing some significant progress in the state of humanoid robots.
Oh, wow.
But one thing to note, though, which is maybe a common theme throughout this, is that the fastest human and the winner of the race did it in 1 hour and 2 minutes. So that is a very quick half marathon. But yeah, so the robots were so far off, even though they didn't get tired or didn't have their lung capacity limiting them or anything. But yeah, progress is speeding up. Goldman Sachs, they said that the worldwide market for humanoid robots is forecast to be much, much bigger than they forecasted even just a year ago. So they're struggling to kind of see where things are going. And VC, venture capital and corporate funding has gone through the roof for new startups that are making humanoid robots. And it surpassed 1.2 billion in Q1 of 2025. So at the start of this year, it was through the roof.
Oh, wow. I guess that's really interesting because if the robots had wheels, I'm sure they would have absolutely smoked the humans. But yeah, today we're talking about humanoid robots, and we want to talk about this idea of the digital sprint against the physical marathon. So when it comes to digital AI, within 13 years, we've come from a system that can predict between cats and dogs to passing the legal exam, doing PhD level science.
Yeah, ChatGPT, yeah.
Yeah, whereas when it comes to physical AI, we're actually seeing more of a marathon. So I guess that's a reference to the Chinese story, but yes, we've gone from systems that had cables and things to now fully wireless robots able to do backflips. But there's still something fundamentally missing in physical robots, and they're not able to learn in the same way that humans do. So we'll talk a bit about that later.
Yeah, and a lot of these tricks that you see them doing, like the backflips, are kind of all pre-programmed, aren't they? And very few of them they're deciding to do or doing on the fly.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, in this episode, we're going to bring you up to speed on how close we are to Terminator-style robots. We'll understand why intelligent robot development is actually much harder than we initially thought. And then we'll talk about where this is going, all within 15 minutes.
Strap in.
So let's go straight in. So why is robotics hard to develop? Well, the first thing is the way we train AI robots to learn on their own is called reinforcement learning. And famously, the success of this was when we got an AI to beat the best chess player in the world at chess.
Yeah, AlphaZero.
Yeah, AlphaZero, yeah. And it took 44 million games for AlphaZero to play chess before it could beat a human. And as we can see that if we're trying to train real-world robots to learn, you just can't wait for millions of trials. You know, if you want to teach a robot to pick up a cup of tea, you have to watch it drink tea 44 million times.
You have to be recharging it a lot.
Yeah, and what if it spills the tea and just breaks itself? So training in real world is a big problem.
I think another point on that as well is that the real world is so much more messy and dynamic and chaotic than a simulation or than kind of game of chess playing on a computer. There's so many more variables and things that can change and not match up. So.
Yeah, exactly. And there's also, so because of this, people go, oh, well, training in the real world is so expensive. Let's train in simulation.
Yeah.
And, create imagine like a Grand Theft Auto style world where there's like super realistic physics and you teach an agent to learn in that world. The problem is that exactly what Kieran's saying, when you move from that world to the real world, the brain that worked in simulation doesn't work as well in the real world.
Yeah. And I just wanted to touch on this because this is one of the improvements that we've seen over recent years that has accelerated some of the progress in robotics and humanoid robots, which is this sim to real revolution. So as Riku was saying, we train a digital version of the robots on the computer, and then we train that brain, that AI, and it maps into the physical. But we've had improvements from companies like NVIDIA, which mean that our simulations are far more realistic, and the physics engines that power them are much closer to then what we transfer them to in real life. So that, combined with the fact that we have more compute power now, and we can test thousands and thousands and thousands of variants of those robots in the computer, so that it's much more robust to things that it'll see in the real world.
Wow. So not only this, but as we all know about the massive development of language models and vision models, so AI models that can understand images and video.
Yeah.
The integration of these technologies into robotics is massively helping them navigate the real world.
Yeah.
So there are all sorts of developments going on right now, and that's why we're talking about this today.
Yeah, I think it's this idea of the multimodal AI that previously you'd have the cameras for the eyes of the humanoid robot. It would then have some image object detection model, and then it would have some reasoning about that. Whereas now it's all happening end to end, that it can see that stuff and kind of reason about it in one go. And then maybe when we start getting the sensory input from these robots, it can also reason about that within the same brain, rather than everything being kind of disjointed and kind of compartmentalized as we've seen historically. So multimodal AI, LLMs, it's all adding to this huge rapid progress that we're seeing in robotics.
Yeah.
And alongside that, so we've obviously got this technological push, which is allowing the capabilities of robotics to advance. We've also got a huge pulling factor, which is creating a lot of demand for humanoid robots, which is an aging population. So I think Japan was one of the first countries that started to really invest in humanoid robots, specifically in the nursing sector, because they had a really old aging population, and they didn't have enough of the younger generation coming in to work as nurses or kind of support workforce that could look after that aging population. So the natural solution there was to use robots to do it. And we're now seeing this globally as well. So there's expected to be a shortfall of 85 million workers in the job market by 2030 globally. So this kind of demand is getting larger and larger.
Wow. So yeah, there's a huge resurgence in hype for humanoid robots then.
So as a result, we've seen this huge surge in all these different robotics companies springing up and getting investment. So I'd highly recommend that there are loads that I hadn't seen, that if you go onto their website, you can just see all these crazy videos of their robots kind of actually navigating the real world. So I think one of the first ones that was definitely widely spoken about was Tesla's Optimus robot, and their humanoid that's like 6 foot tall and is going to navigate the home and the workforce. And in addition to that, we've got some new ones that you can go on their website. So Figure 02 is another one, Agility Digit. And yeah, one which is definitely catching people's eyes, I think the CEO did a TED Talk recently, was the company called 1X. And they have a humanoid robot called Neo, don't they?
Yeah, I saw this TED Talk the other day, and they started out with Neo in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
Just introing the whole talk, and it looks so weirdly human. So
it's very strange.
Yeah, what can Neo do? So Neo's built for the home, and I guess the idea is to help with your kind of chores and help hoover. I think on the TED Talk that you got hoovering. And the cool thing with Neo is that you can see straight away from the TED Talk that it's integrated with these LLMs. So I think they've partnered with OpenAI, so they've actually got some of the best language models kind of powering the logic inside the system.
Brain of the robot, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Neo is 1.67 meters tall.
Okay.
So depends who you are, but a nice height.
Yeah.
But only weighs 30 kilos. So I thought Neo would be heavier. Yeah, it can carry 20 kilos. So again, it's not super strong, but it can lift some, your vacuum cleaner.
So it can't pick you up and throw you.
Exactly. So yeah, it won't do great as a boxing partner. It can walk 4 kilometers an hour and run actually 12 kilometers an hour.
Okay.
So it's got some practical speeds to it. And its power output is between 290 and 500 watts, which actually turns out to be similar to human level. So it's actually a pretty efficient house carer.
That's cool. Yeah, just one quick thing to know, which I think is quite interesting about the recent progress in humanoids, is like with Neo, they built it for the home. A lot of these humanoid robots previously were being designed and trained to work in factories and warehouses. And the CEO on that TED Talk basically says that this is going to be one of the big changes we need to increase their intelligence and their capabilities, is let them navigate and operate within a much more dynamic environment like a home, rather than a kind of manufacturing line, which is literally designed to be as autonomous and kind of repetitive as possible. So you're not going to learn a huge array of tasks just by working in a warehouse. So they say that the key to having these intelligent humanoid robots is to train them and have them in your own home.
Oh, wow. I'd want mine after it's been fully trained.
Yeah, me too. I would not want it learning on the go. Just give me a cup of tea and just spilling it on my lap. And I think because of this, we've now had this kind of new way or idea to train these humanoids. There's been a huge surge of investment. So recently, Figure AI, which is another one of those companies I just mentioned, they closed a $675 million deal last month, which comprised of Microsoft, Nvidia, and OpenAI investing in them. So a huge amount of money. And we're seeing loads of other startups that are kind of generating similar amounts, a lot of investment in China as well. So there's huge money being shoveled into these companies now.
Wow.
And yeah, I think we're just going to see more and more of this direction in the future. We've seen these reports by Goldman Sachs that just show these kind of exponential curves of this funding and investment, estimating that we're going to have some companies with 250,000 units, so 250,000 humanoid robots being shipped by 2030. So I think the estimate is basically that in the 2030s, we are going to see very large amounts of humanoid robots in warehouses, in factories, maybe even in our homes as well. So they are coming and coming quite quickly.
Wow. And I guess they're getting built right now. But whilst there are these amazing plans, there are actually still some massive tech hurdles that need to be overcome. So, for example, the fastest runner in that Chinese robot half marathon still needed 3 battery changes mid-run. So if you need something from the shops and it's got half the battery, it won't be able to help you out and things. There's
a lot of research going on to try and enable these robots to do something called hot swapping, which is you can change the battery without them having to shut down and power back on. So that's also still a kind of hurdle that is being investigated.
And most importantly is this idea of catastrophic forgetting. So right now, if you teach a human to walk and then you teach them how to cycle, if they then try to walk again, they'll be absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Whereas we actually don't have the learning algorithm, so the way to teach machines how to learn to walk, learn to cycle, and then go back to walking again. So I think this is really interesting and not spoken about enough.
Yeah.
We have this idea that AI is just constantly sucking up data and learning infinitely.
Yeah.
But it actually turns out that when you look at the robotics domain of AI, they're really struggling to learn on the job. So that is a big hurdle.
And even if they do retrain them and the new information they learn, it just kind of overwrites the previous stuff, doesn't it? Rather than kind of has its own new section of the brain that it can swap between.
Yeah, exactly. That's why they call it catastrophic forgetting.
It's very cool. Cool. So we've got all these tech hurdles and these these technological issues we'll have to get past to develop these robots. But I think there's a much bigger hurdle in their way, which is the societal issue and really feeling comfortable. You said it just before, like you'd never let it in your home until it was completely trained and capable. So I definitely think the societal hurdles are going to be big.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones are privacy concerns. So if we want these robots to be learning on the fly in our houses, if we're one of the early adopters and we're letting it learn how to make a cup of tea.
Yeah.
It's using its camera to look at everything in my kitchen and figure out how to actually make a cup of tea. And I don't really want that information going to another company, maybe.
Yeah, it is very invasive, isn't it? And it is slightly concerning, though, right? Because I'm in the same boat as you. Like, I wouldn't want it in my home anytime soon. But we are seeing this very real shortfall in workers. So, unless we can find a solution for that and we get kind of birth rates up, we will, in some industries, depend on them being developed and becoming very capable at those tasks. So we are somehow going to have to get past some of these societal hurdles, even though we might not like having them in our home or in the workplace.
Yeah, we might not have a choice. I mean, in Japan, there's this statistic where there's 4.25 positions available per applicant for care workers.
Wow.
So there are way more jobs than applicants.
That's scary.
And they're actually rolling out this AIR EC prototype. So it's actually quite a big robot. It can lift 150 kilos.
Wow, so that can lift a person.
It can lift a person. That's exactly what it's meant to do. It's meant to help people get in and out of bed, and it can actually cook omelets and things.
Nice. Wow.
There are lots of there's a huge kind of demand for this in these aging populations.
Yeah. And I think that is, we were saying that these are two separate things, like the societal hurdles and the tech hurdles, but maybe when they start demonstrating their capabilities and showing that they can do all these tasks as well as humans, and we can get over the kind of privacy concerns, maybe that is the only way we will then start to lower our kind of barriers and let them come into our homes. So maybe they aren't kind of separate.
I don't think I want a robot waking me up in the morning.
No, not if it can throw 130 kilos or whatever. Just launch me against the wall to wake me up.
Oh.
Cool. So we covered a lot there, but I hope we gave you a little flavour of the current landscape of humanoids. Like, we're definitely going to come back to this in a longer form episode, I think, but we wanted to just touch on the fact that all of this is happening very quickly, and things are coming, and there are big companies on the way. Yeah,
we covered a lot, and I guess we end with the question: if robots run with us, who sets the pace? Engineers, ethicists, or the markets buying up all those $38 billion unicorns?
Wow. Yeah, it's a big question.
So, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.